Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Dare Me to Prosper. My name is Avery, and I am your host. This is episode 45, and today is going to be a fun one. Maybe a little fun, maybe a little bit awkward, maybe a little bit more than you bargained for, but I really think this is an important topic. We are going to talk about sex, about sexual energy more specifically, and how to view it from a more spiritual perspective and how it is so much more than we typically think of it culturally. So you have been forewarned. This is probably not an episode for little ears if you have kids around. Also, Dad, if you are listening to this episode, feel free to skip it. I'm not going to share anything personal, but you've been warned. Okay, so essentially what this episode is about and it's something that I've been learning about as I reflect on my life. And again, I'm not going to go into detail. Don't worry. I'm not going to overshare here. But just as something I've been reflecting on, as I look at my life and I look at the culture and I'm raising kids and I'm thinking about, this aspect of how the world views sex versus like from a spiritual perspective. What is it? Like, how should we view it? What is the healthiest way to embody our sexual energy? Because something that I've witnessed is, how people can be so easily traumatized by like the fear of sex, like whether you've had an abusive experience sexually or whether you just like never learned how to be intimate with another human being. Like you feel so terrified of vulnerability that it really blocks your ability to be close to someone in this way. Like there's so many different, blocks or issues that we can run into in terms of our sexual experiences and energy. And so I kind of want to open up open up the door, take off the cover. I don't have a good analogy for this. Unveil the truth, there we go, of kind of what this energy really is about from a spiritual perspective and how we can look at it in a way that really embodies all that it is. Because when we think of sex, right, as a culture, we tend to think of sex as just like this separate piece of our lives, right? Just like this thing that you engage in over here in this setting with this person or, whatever. It's like this side piece of your life that doesn't interact with the rest of your life. I mean, unless you've made a career out of it, but you know what I mean? For most people, this is like a side partial piece of your life that you keep over here. But spiritually and energetically, sexual energy isn't just about the physical, and it's not just about like this relationship with your loved one. It is, loved one sounds weird, with your partner. But it's actually this fundamental life force that powers everything. It powers creativity. It powers attraction. It powers your spiritual growth. We don't see it that way because we haven't been taught to see it that way. But this is not just like an esoteric or theoretical idea. Your sexual energy, your sexual life force has practical implications in everyday life, in every part of your life. It affects every part of your life because it is your life force. And this is the core of this episode. This is what you really need to understand. Sexual energy is one of the most intense and influential energetic states that we have access to as humans. Sexual energy, orgasms are like the most intense energetic state that you can access. And we'll get into this, but obviously this can be used for good and it can be used for bad. It's an intense energy. It's a powerful energy, and how you use it is everything. So when it's harnessed consciously, it can amplify manifestation. It can attract opportunities. It can strengthen your spiritual connection. If it's misused or if it's blocked, it can create trauma. It can create stagnation, frustration, emotional imbalance. It can be awful and evil and horrible. It's all about how you harness it and how you use it. But at its core, it's extremely powerful. Like, you should think of your sexual energy as essentially the spark of life itself. It is like the core body, mind, and spirit energy. Kind of like sunlight fuels life on earth, your sexual energy fuels your vitality, your capacity to create, to express, to connect with other people. I mean, think about literally, this is where life comes from. That is why we can create humans, children, out of this exact energy, because this is the most powerful convergence of energy that we have access to. But we tend to segregate it, right? We tend to kind of box it in over here as like, oh, this part of our life, like sex is just sex for me and my partner, like, or, to have children, like this isn't, this has nothing to do with my work. This has nothing to do with my creativity or my spiritual journey or whatever it is. That's where we go wrong. And I think because in our minds, sex is just like purely lust, and we don't see how that can be integrated and how that energy connects to other parts of our life. And that's where we are really missing opportunities. And it doesn't mean that you're like bringing lust into every part of your life. That's obviously not the goal, but it's understanding how this energy works and how this energy is held and used and accessible in your body in a way that fuels your entire life. And so that's it's a very intricate, kind of nuanced topic, but I think it's important. I think this is something that we will start to hear more about as, this becomes more of a mainstream topic, is kind of like redefining sex and sexual energy as something that is so much more than just how we define it now. Because again, spiritually speaking, sex is like this ancient energy, right? Like sex is as old as humans are. Like this has always been something that we have had access to, but we have not always had the understanding of how to harness it. And it's intimately personal, right? This is your life force. This is your energy, and where you choose to share it or where you choose to, or how you choose to embody it is deeply personal to you. But it's not just something that we have. It's literally a core creative current of existence itself. And when we think about it, we think about it like we know that the act of sex creates new life, but we're not always aware, even though we could be using it, we're not always aware of how that same energy fuels inspiration and art and our spiritual awakening itself. It fuels transformation and healing and expansion. But we're just we're not understanding that process. And like anything else, when you fully understand something, you can utilize it to the best of its ability, to the most powerful end that you can, if you understand what's happening. And so I feel like I'm just like talking in these really abstract circles, but I'm just trying to paint the overall introductory picture of what this really is and kind of express how powerful, how big this is, and how it's not just the lusty, just the connection between two people, like just that aspect of it. That is like a piece of it. That is the most potent piece of it, but it's not all of it. But even that act itself, again, that's how new people are created, right? It's also kind of like a bridge. It is a way, that energy, that heightened, really intense, really whatever energy is like this moment of like connection, like this moment of where like spiritually a door kind of opens. It's like a moment where you have a bridge between the physical world and the energetic world. And we don't necessarily know that's happening, but if you know that it's happening, you have the opportunity to utilize it. Like all of a sudden, the act of sex can become this very spiritual thing that you wouldn't always necessarily think of. It can become so much more expansive, so much more intense, so much more amazing if you understand the type of energy that you have access to. Oh my God. I'm just realizing how long of an episode this is going to be. Also, I didn't even mention this in the beginning, but I have another episode. I have a Patreon episode that is similar to this one that goes a lot more in depth around kind of the way that we utilize sex. This is the first one I've done on the main feed. So I'm like, I hope you guys are ready for this. I guess we'll see. Maybe if I should keep these as Patreon episodes or if you guys are ready for what we're dishing out here. But let's get into the nitty gritty for a bit while keeping it, mainstream appropriate. Let's get into like what is really happening during this act and like what energetically, like why is it so powerful? What's actually happening? Because the reality is it's so much more than just hormones. It's so much more than just physical stimulation. It's truly a convergence of body, mind, soul, like your life force, your physical, your mental, like everything is converging together, which is why this is such a powerful intense experience. And it's also why we're so drawn to it, right? We are so, as humans, we are naturally very drawn to this energy and creating it, whether it's with a partner, whether it's by yourself, whether, whatever. You're drawn to it because deep down, it's like, we know this is a powerful experience. Our body knows how important this is and how this is literally fuel for us as humans. That's why you feel different afterwards. That's why you sleep better, assuming that this is a positive experience and not used in a horrific, evil way, right? If we're assuming, that we're looking at it from a consensual, positive experience, that's why you feel the energetic aftermath. This is also kind of like what Kundalini is, right? Have you ever heard of like the Kundalini energy, where it's like the actual life force that starts, in your root chakra and kind of moves up through your body? We'll talk about that more in a second, but it's like the core, the true essence of our energy. And when that energy is moving upwards through your body, it kind of creates this full body resonance, which again, that's why pleasure can kind of like expand from just being a local sensation to something that is all over your body, and it feels like expansive and cosmic and whatever. That's why when you're excited, you feel more alive, more electric, more present. It's that energy starting to move, starting to come alive. As people, as humans, when we are just going about our day-to-day, when we're going to work, when we're taking care of our responsibilities, like whatever, when we're not in that kind of mindset, you're very like top chakra heavy, like all of your energy, it's very, right? We're up here, we're in our heads, we're mentally, we're thinking, we're speaking, we're in our heart chakra, like it's all like top heavy energy. When you are engaged in a like sexual space, you're starting to not only have the top chakras kind of lit up, but also now your root chakra and your solar plexus and your sacral. Like all of a sudden you're connecting all of the chakras, like you've got all of the energy moving and it's much more balanced. And while your upper chakras, like your mental plane, kind of rules a lot of the thoughts, the thinking, the mental stuff, your root chakra is like your survival, your safety, your stability, your home. So during sexual connection, the lower chakras, the root and the sacral that govern safety and pleasure and embodiment, start to merge with your heart and your throat and your crown chakras, which up here govern love and truth and spiritual connection. And so now, and when all of those chakras are starting to sync and all of that energy is moving up and down, your body isn't like competing. It's not like the top versus the bottom where it's like we turn the bottom off and we're just on top. Now we're integrating everything and you can feel it deeply in your body. And then once you've got all that energy, like once your Kundalini is kind of like lit up and activated, it's very expansive. That's why it feels, again, so like almost out of body. And that moment, if you're engaged with a partner, there's all this like overlap of energy. All of a sudden, like that's when, ideally, right, in its most healthy, authentic sense, if you are in a safe space with someone else, that's when like the walls come down and you're truly like embodying this energy of give and take, this energy of love. That's where, again, ideally, your emotional walls can drop. So it's like the more open you are with someone else, like the more reciprocal your relationship is, the better experience you will have because the energy will be fully flowing. It's like there's no blocks in the stream, there's no blocks, there's no rocks in the river. Everything is flowing fully and, reciprocally. Is that a word? So it's like, even if you don't understand fully what's happening in that moment, when you are with someone who you are fully tuned into and there's a very equal exchange, that is like the best possible scenario for you to experience like the fullness of this energy. Because anytime there's a block, like, one partner is afraid of vulnerability or one partner is not fully comfortable or there's just issues in the relationship in general and you're not both, whatever, you're not on the same page, there's mental blocks, there's heart blocks, there, whatever, that's going to kind of stunt the energy. It's like, yeah, that the act itself, of course, can still happen and you'll get it partially, but the more open and connected and in sync and aligned you are with a partner, the more things will kind of click and really expand. And so I think it's important to note here too that sexual energy is not something to control or something to be afraid of or something to mindlessly indulge in. Like the best way to view sexual energy is with reverence, to understand that it's very powerful. It's a gift. It can be used to deepen love, create expansion. It can be used to bring life into the world. It needs to be recognized with reverence and intentionality and awareness, and not like just a frivolous act that, you just engage in because. And your sexual energy will act as a mirror. It's kind of like a mirror that reveals to you where your energy is. Like, however you engage with sex, whether it's with yourself or with a partner, like that will often reflect the state that you are in or that they are in, right? It reflects your relationship to love, to trust, to power. Does that make sense? So when you view it with more reverence rather than with like holding back, or viewing it with shame, or viewing it with too much ego, like it's something you just feel like you need to dominate or just use as a tool, it will align you more fully with your creative and spiritual selves. I feel like I'm coming at this one topic from a million different angles. It's such a huge topic, and there's so many different things to talk about. So let me try to stay more organized here. So we've kind of talked about like what it is, how to view it from a more spiritual perspective, and how it affects other aspects of your life. We've talked about what the healthiest way to embody that with a partner is, and why it can be different with some people or some relationships than others. We've talked about how it's a tool that can be used for good or evil, and it's really just the intensity of this thing that we have access to. And we've talked about what's really happening energetically when we are in this space, when we're in this state of sexual energy, like what's happening within our body and within our chakras, and why it's so powerful. Another thing I want to mention really quick is why choosing your partners is so important. Because when you are engaging in sex with someone else, with another person, your energy, you're literally in the most visceral way, you are opening your field and you are sharing your energy with another person, and you are taking in their energy. You are overlapping your auric fields, essentially. You are literally blending your essence with another person, and your bodies will start to sync up. I mean, you'll start to co-regulate. You'll start syncing your breath and your heartbeat and your movements and your brain waves. And for that time, you are sharing a frequency field. So you are very much in the closest way possible merging with another person temporarily. And that's why even when you part from that person, you either feel like a leftover energy of like love and appreciation and, like the good energy, right? You think of it fondly. Or if it was a negative or, God forbid, traumatic or uninvited experience, you are also left with energy that is trauma and suffering and pain or whatever. It's because during that act, your energy field is overlapping with someone else's. You're merging. And so even when you separate, you are still carrying the energy from that person because you literally connected. And now that you've disconnected, you still are holding some of their energy. So this is why it's so important not to just see it as this like flippant thing that you just engage in with anyone, anytime, anywhere, because you're doing yourself a disservice by taking on and merging with so many people's different energies that now you're essentially like kind of creating this muddled mess within your own energy field. And if you're someone that doesn't know how to kind of cleanse yourself from that, if you don't know how to remove other people's energy from you or disconnect, or, you've got these lingering energetic ties and you don't know how to disconnect, you're going to walk around with all of this uninvited, lingering, emotional energy. And that can really affect you in a negative way, potentially, or a positive way. But if you're engaging with multiple people, there's a good chance that there's a lot of negative leftover energy that you don't want. This is not my chosen path, so I can't really tell you. But, for people that have just go for this lifestyle of like partner after partner after partner after partner, and you've heard this, that it's like they're trying to fill a void and it doesn't fill it. Like in the moment it feels good, but later they feel worse. It doesn't feel good, right? And some people I think are able to kind of disconnect the emotional part of it. And I don't think that that's a healthy thing to do. I would not recommend that at all. But I think some people do kind of use this energy as like a coping mechanism, like just like anything else that they're trying to use to numb something like alcohol or drugs or whatever. I think some people use this sexual energy to kind of give them this temporary relief from the negative energy, from the negative feelings that they're feeling. And so whether that's like a porn addiction or whether that is, just multiple non-serious partners, it's not going to leave you feeling empowered or refreshed or good afterwards, because you're just, even if you're just watching something that's, just a random thing, like you're still partially engaging in this like energy swap, energy exchange that is not going to give you a healthy reciprocal energy exchange. It's not going to make you feel better in the long run. So that's a long-winded way of saying choose your partner wisely. Make sure that there is emotional safety and, conscious awareness. Make sure there's mutual respect. Make sure that you are not using it as something to numb or to control, but to experience and purposefully merge your energy with hopefully this, a person that you love and that you want to merge with. And at the same time, I'm saying this, I am not coming from a place of like, oh, sex is bad and you shouldn't, sleep around because it makes you a bad person. Like it's not a sin. That is not my angle here. My angle is more like telling you like, hey, if you eat a bunch of candy, I know it tastes good, but your stomach is going to hurt. You know what I mean? Like you're doing yourself a disservice. That's the motherly energy I'm coming in with, is like, do it for you. It's not that I'm judging you for your life choices, because I understand we all do things for different reasons and we have different choices. And I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to tell you like, hey, if you want to experience this in its most profound, most impactful, most amazing way, then you're going to want to make your choices very deliberately and very consciously and very intentionally, because that's when you will thrive. And maybe something that hasn't been such a good experience for you in the past can actually be a much better experience for you in the future. Okay, so that's on like choosing your partners. Another thing I want to note, when you begin to heal your relationship with sex, and I would like to I think I might do a whole nother episode on like sex and trauma, or I want to be careful because I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, and I don't want to speak to people in a way that I'm not here to like medically help or heal you, and I'm not certified to talk on like sexual abuse or trauma, but more just energetically from a stance of kind of how to maybe go about healing your relationship with sex, whatever that might look like. And I don't know if I want to make that a Patreon episode or a main feed episode. I guess it'll depend on how you guys respond to this one, but this is why when someone begins to heal their relationship with sex or with sexual energy, like if that has not been a positive experience in the past and you're able to kind of rewire your brain to see it in a healthier way, or a way that doesn't scare you or traumatize you or, make you feel uncomfortable, that is when other areas of your life like creativity and confidence and manifestation, opportunities, spiritual gifts begin to unlock. Because what's important here is understanding how this is all connected. Again, going back to that Kundalini energy, this isn't some like separate aspect of your life. This is your life force. And it doesn't mean you have to walk around like horny and turned on all the time. It just means that this is not like a separate connection. It is all intertwined. And so when you have a healthy sex life, again, on your own or with a partner, when you have a positive understanding, or when you have a more full understanding of how this works, it allows you to utilize this energy in a healthy way in other areas. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm going to ask that question 50 times in this episode. And again, I feel like healing that is an entirely separate episode. But when it is suppressed, so when you have maybe like some trauma or some suffering in your background or confusion or whatever it is, when this energy is suppressed or distorted, it often shows up in unhealthy ways, like distortions or addictions, like using it to try to temporarily fill a hole or a gap in your energy, something that doesn't feel good, like you're trying to give yourself a temporary high that doesn't actually stick. Or maybe you have a lot of shame around it or a lot of guilt. Like religious trauma absolutely plays into this. If you're somebody that has grew up learning that sex was sinful and purity culture and that it made you bad or gross or whatever. That's almost the saddest part of this whole thing, is that something that is literally your life force, that is literally like the core essence of your energy and who you are as a human being and how you interact with the entire world around you, if you were made to feel like that was disgusting or inappropriate and I, of course, I'm talking about in a healthy sense, like, yeah, it can absolutely be inappropriate or abusive or whatever. But just thinking of the fact that we all have these desires and we all have this energy within us, calling that, defining that as bad or evil or inappropriate or something that you shouldn't feel is so damaging, because it's literally telling you you shouldn't have a heart. You shouldn't have emotions. Emotions are bad. How dare you have emotions? If you ever feel a negative emotion, you should be ashamed of yourself. Like, that's kind of a similar, view on how we're doing this. Is it's such a natural part of us. Demonizing it just distorts it. Demonizing it just distorts your ability to interact with this energy, with this ability, this bridge that you have. The important way to understand it is as a tool that you have access to that must be used with reverence, that must be used in a way that is healthy and safe and reciprocal, not as something bad. Like here I go, analogy queen. It's like if you're driving a car. Are cars evil and bad because people can die or these horrible things can happen? You can get in an accident. There could be a drunk driver. You could, so many things, so many ways that driving a car goes bad. But the car itself is just an opportunity that you have. It can take you across the country. It can allow you to go places that you never could have gone without it, right? It's this amazing tool. It's how you use the tool. And so many things in life are like that, where it's really your intention and how you use it than it is the thing itself. But having a car is very powerful. It allows you to do things you could never do. It can take you to crazy places, but you have to use it responsibly. You don't drink and get behind the wheel. You don't, drive when you're too tired. You wear your seatbelt. All of these things that you do because you have reverence for the car. You know that what you're getting into when you step into the vehicle is very powerful and that you carry a lot of power and responsibility when you use it. This is the same way. Okay, so this whole episode, right, is talking about how sex and sexual energy affect other areas of your life. Because you might be thinking like, okay, I still don't get how this helps me be more creative or manifest. Okay, let's talk about that. The connection between sex and inspiration really connects to kind of your sexual health, like your sex life, essentially. Again, doesn't have to be with a partner. You don't have to be partnered up to do this. I would say that is a more like powerful merging of energies, but I think it's better to be on your own than, again, be misusing or not taking it seriously. Like it's better to be on your own than just like having sex with a bunch of partners in terms of how that energy is going to be expressed. So when it's in a healthy context, very powerful with two people. It can also be very powerful on your own. This is just, totally up to you. But essentially, creative energy and sexual energy share the same energetic source. So when your sexual energy is flowing, when you have a healthy sex life, when you are coming from that place, from a healthy state of mind, you don't feel shame around it, you don't feel guilt around it, you're not afraid of it, you're not in your ego, you have a healthy relationship to your sexual energy. When it's flowing, you are naturally more inspired and able to generate new ideas and art and expression and solutions and, your career, whatever it is. Think about it. If you've had the opportunity to have like a good sex life, where you are in a loving relationship or again, just your own, but whatever, where it's steady and it feels good and there's no like negative feelings that are kind of dragging it down, the rest of your life gets better, right? You feel more alive, you have more energy, you feel more creative, you feel more empowered to go out into the world because you have this energy that is like buzzing within you, right? I mean, you're on a high. That is the same energy. And it doesn't mean that you have to walk around lusting all the time. It just means that energy, it's like a battery. It's like a battery source. It fuels you. And so without it, like if you just completely avoid that or you just have no, healthy access to that in your life, you're kind of drained. It's not that you can't be creative or that you can't feel alive or that you can't laugh or, of course you can, but with a fuller battery, you're just going to operate from a more abundant, overflowing place. So it's like you can take that energy when your battery is full, you can take that energy and redirect it into all of these other areas of your life, into creative projects. And I'm not specialize in this and I'm not really going to get into it, but this is kind of the same principle behind like tantra and like transmutation techniques where it's like spiritual sex, essentially spiritual yoga, like there's all these different ways that you can practice like tapping into this energy and again kind of like bringing it to the surface, like awakening your kundalini. There's all of these different ways where you're not actively necessarily engaging in sex itself, but you can learn how to harness and access the energy. And so releasing sexual energy mindfully can, it's like it's like every analogy that I want to come up with for this is just really that's what she said coded. But it's like all of a sudden a fountain going off, or it's like it's unclogging a pipe, it's unleashing this energy, it's allowing the dam to flow. Sorry, excuse me, apparently I'm very immature. But energetically, it can kind of break through stagnation that maybe you've had in your body. Like if you have blocks, maybe emotional blocks in your chakras, right? And we talk all the time on this podcast about how to unblock stuck energy and how to process emotions. And all of that is part of, because ideally, right, you want the energy to flow all the way up and down your chakras, from your root chakra to your crown chakra and whatever chakras are like above your head. I don't, whatever. But the idea is like you want the energy to like be this unblocked, continuously flowing river, right? Like that's like the healthiest energetic, emotional state you can be in. And so while you still have to process the emotions, you still have to do the other things, but this sexual energy is kind of like, it's so intense. It's like, again, unclogging a pipe. It's like you got, I don't know, something stuck in your drain, and like the sexual energy is so powerful. That is what allows things to start unblocking and things to start moving. All right, let's move on from that. But anyway, when it's suppressed, it'll feel sometimes like lack of motivation or creative burnout or procrastination, low energy. And there's lots of things that can contribute to that, but that is certainly a very large piece of this puzzle. Okay, so what other ways does sex and sexual energy impact your life in other areas? First of all, you've heard of what they call like the O method for manifesting. And that's essentially this idea that when you orgasm, like when you are engaging in sex and you have an orgasm, that is like the peak energy point. That is when your energy is at its highest possible. Like that's when you can access and harness that most powerful energy. And so when people talk about the O method, what they're essentially saying is, we talk about visualization and we talk about tapping into the energy of having something. Like if you want something, visualizing and feeling like what it's already like to have that. And so what people will do is basically in that moment, like leading up to an orgasm and actually having an orgasm, they will use that moment to, again, try to embody the feeling and the visualization of whatever it is they are wanting to manifest, which sounds kind of funny at first, but don't knock it. It is a very well-respected method. And again, something I think you need to handle with reverence and respect, but I definitely think it is a very powerful, because you are basically taking that moment, that very, very intense, very high frequency, again, in the right state, high frequency energy, and you are projecting that energy towards what you want in life. And that can be very powerful. Okay, so again, we're talking about how this connects to like our outer life, how this energy is so much more than just like your sex life. This energy is naturally very magnetic. We're talking about how this affects your energetic state in the rest of your life when you are consistently, tapping into this very powerful high frequency energy. You become more alive. It also makes you more magnetic. So if you are carrying this high frequency, this really healthy sexual energy, this life force energy, and you have really tapped into that, and it's strong, and you're really embodying it, that radiates outward to people. Not that they're going, oh, that person is having a lot of sex, but they are your energy without other people even consciously understanding what it is about you. They can sense that your energy is very, like, it has a lot of vitality. Your energy is very magnetic. It's strong. It's enticing. And it's just because you are in that really intense positive state and your body is holding on to that energy, which then flows out to the rest of your life. And so if you're walking around in this magnetic state, that radiates outward, and you're going to draw in experiences. You're going to draw in people. You're going to draw in circumstances that match that frequency that you are embodying. So the more aligned and conscious your energy are, right? The more tuned into you are to this life force energy, this Kundalini energy, the stronger your attraction power is. And again, you don't need a partner to do this. You can very much like heal this and tap into this on your own. But again, with the same reverence, you don't want to be like engaged in a bunch of like porn or whatever, because that is going to lower the frequency. That's going to lower, first of all, you're overlapping, even from a distance, you are overlapping your energy with someone else's that you don't know and is probably not a very high frequency, because you're not getting like a reciprocal love energy from that person or people that you're using. So however you approach it, you want it to be with reverence, and you want it to be with this understanding of whatever you engage with during that period of time is something that you are inviting into your very powerful energy. So choose those things or people wisely and appropriately, obviously. I want to make it very clear. I should have said this in the beginning. I want to make it very clear that this episode in no way condones anything that is non-consensual, anything that is inappropriate, anything that involves minors. That is absolutely unacceptable and not at all part of what I am talking about. And honestly, I think sexual distortion would be a whole nother episode in itself. Do you see how there's so many different like angles this could go, both positively and negatively? But in a healthy, consensual state, this is a very powerful, positively powerful energy. And so this also ties obviously into attraction, right? That in the beginning, when you are maybe initially attracted to someone or there's like a reciprocal attraction happening, that is so heavily energetic. Like that, it's from the moment that you begin an interaction with someone, you are exchanging energies, you're exchanging frequencies. And so it's not about just getting someone to like you, it's about embodying an energy that resonates with the other person. So, it goes south really quickly if one person is adjusting or lowering their energy or shifting their energy and not being authentic to match someone else's frequency, and then they just go forward with it anyway. That's from the beginning, it's a mismatch of energy. And I have personal experience with this. I think we've all probably done this at some at some time or place, but it's important when you are considering this that you are your authentic self, and that you are engaging with someone who is matching your frequency, who is matching your energy. You want to embody an energy that resonates with the relationship that you desire. Because again, mismanaged, mismatched sexual energy creates unbalanced, misaligned relationships and patterns. And here's the thing, most people who are engaging in this are unaware of this, right? They're not thinking like, oh, I want to be energetically aligned. They're just like, hey, I'm attracted to that person. And you might be attracted to that person physically, or even attracted to, something about their energy, but it doesn't mean you're automatically an aligned energetic match. And so people who are not aware of this, that's why it's so common to attract a partner that doesn't really match you, where you don't serve each other. They don't serve you. You're not really serving them, or maybe you're serving them more than they're serving you. But someone who is just magnetic and someone who is already embodying this healthy energy is more likely to just easily attract connections that feel aligned, that feel effortless, that already are it's manifestation in its simplest form. Okay, let's shift for a second. Let's talk about sexual energy and how that affects you and your spiritual journey and kind of your energy inside of your body and your emotional world and all of those things, right? Because like anything else, sexual energy is a conduit. Energy is always moving, it's always connecting, disconnecting, it's carrying, it's flowing, and sexual energy is deeply connected to your spiritual awareness because, again, it is the life core. It is the core of everything. It's what brought you into the world, and it is the core of your access to connect with other things and just sustain your life in general. So it fuels your spiritual body as well, your intuition, your psychic ability, your manifestation, your spiritual gifts, because it is your life force. It's your high vibrational life force energy. And again, it doesn't mean that you're always turned on in it, that if you're not like excited and turned on that you don't have access to this energy. That's not how it works. That's the peak. That's the peak of, when you're engaging in this energy and you're it's like you're opening the door to that energy and bringing it into your body. And then you hold on to it. So then it's like you open the door, you fill up your battery, you fill up your cup, right? When you engage in that, when it's in a healthy, space. And then you get to now have this energy to go out and like it's your source. It's your source of energy to go about in the world creatively. Even when you're not turned on or in a sexual space, you just harness that energy now. Okay? But then as you go about your life, you're using that energy, you're depleting it, right? And so what do you need now? You need to refill it. You need to, kind of refill your battery again. And this is like such a crazy library of topics that you could go into. But you know how men operate on like a 24-hour cycle, right? And women operate on a 28-day cycle. This ties to that too. That's why men are more wired to fill up their battery much more often, whereas women are more wired to fill up their battery at a certain point during that 28-day cycle, because theirs is on a much slower, like up and down. It's like that, in the middle of that cycle, they're like, oh, now I'm ready to refill my battery. And men are more like every single day, wanting to refill the battery. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean that women can't, want to fill up their battery much more often than that. But that's just the natural cycle that's how that connects. Also, I should mention that, we talked about, like, obviously the act of sex, all different kinds of sex, by the way. I'm not going to, like, sit here and give you a class on that. But, anything that brings you into that, like, heightened orgasmic state is really the goal. But, we talked about tantric yoga. I don't even know if that's how you say that. Tantric yoga. We talked about, these different aspects where, like, there are other ways that you can kind of harness this energy. Maybe not as strong, maybe not as like direct, but I mean, you can meditate. I mean, it's the same reason why, like, if you can have thoughts that kind of get you excited, right? That's you kind of turning on that energy, even though you're not actively engaged in the act in that moment. You can still access that energy, and all of a sudden it's affecting your body, and you're turning on energy centers, right? I just want to mention that because you can, even without, like, say you're just not in a place where you have a healthy partner, or you don't want one, like whatever it is, again, you can be on your own, but you can also meditate. You can also, start accessing and strengthening that energy just through your own intention and your mind and different practices. So just food for thought. And I'm not going to get into this in this particular episode, but I do want to mention it because, again, this is like a whole nother topic on its own. Healing and balancing your sexual energy is another really important part of this, because I'm talking about all the different ways that having this healthy way of looking at sex and sexual energy and kundalini energy, how that can be so important and empowering and resourceful, for lack of a better word, in your life. There is also a lot of ways that it can be blocked, like shame and guilt and trauma and cultural conditioning are all ways that this energy can be distorted or blocked, or just, you're just traumatized. And that will really affect your ability to tap into your life force energy. And that's just a whole nother topic of how you go about healing that and just learning how to re-embrace it as something that belongs to you and you alone. But I will say that awareness is the first step in clearing these blocks. And so I don't want to disregard people who are maybe listening to this and feel like that is so far from where I am right now, because that's valid and I totally understand that. And I'd like to do an episode. I just have to be careful because I'm not like certified to walk you through that kind of trauma, but I just want to acknowledge it. But ways to kind of just think about cultivating and healing and maybe just like starting to embody interacting with this energy, practices like movement, like literally just moving your body, exercising. Any kind of movement is going to get the energy flowing, right? Whether it's yoga or running or just any kind of exercise, or it could be anything, any kind of movement. It gets your blood flowing, it gets the energy flowing in your body. Also, just self-touch, breath work, self-love rituals in general, just like appreciating and loving yourself, building your self-worth. All of those things are connected. And I think that's something that I feel like bring up on multiple episodes, but just this idea that everything is so much more connected than we think about. Everything is so much more connected than we tend to give credit to. There's truly no part of your life that is disconnected from everything else. Everything is interwoven in some way, shape, or form, especially energetically. Like the way that energy works, everything is a web. Nothing is disconnected. We are not disconnected from each other. We share like this soul source energy, right? We share this God energy. We have no idea how connected we all are and how connected we are with nature. Now I'm going on a tangent, but the point is that nothing is truly disconnected. And so the more that you heal other areas of your life, the more you're also healing this area of your life as well. And the more you heal this area of your life, the more you're healing other areas of your life, because it is all connected. But self-worth and self-love in particular are very, very connected to the sexual and life force energy. And healing your sexual energy is a very holistic process. And I would say it is a vital part of living a very fulfilling, embodied, happy life. I don't think you could live a life to the fullest without having a healthy relationship with this aspect of your life. So, okay, I knew this episode was going to be long, and it was, but I feel like it's important. I don't know. I don't feel like this is something that gets talked about a lot because we're scared of it, or we have shame around it, or we have baggage, or whatever it is. And we don't talk about just how sexual energy is not just sex, and it's not just this like side piece of your life. It is not limited to physical desire. It is the core life force powering creation and attraction and spiritual connection. And it's something that I think we just need to take in a more whole view. Okay, I'm going to shut up now. I hope this episode was helpful or healing or something. And if you enjoyed this episode, let me know. Leave a review, leave a comment, email me, do something. I'm not sure if I should continue these types of episodes here or on the Patreon. I don't know. I do keep a lot of these types of episodes on the Patreon because that is, again, where I tend to deep dive and go more personal and more behind the scenes on these topics. That being said, I felt like this topic in particular that's a little bit more broad is important for the collective and just for, the people. So I hope you found it helpful and healing and whatever. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Don't forget to leave a review. It makes a really big difference for the podcast. You can find all the other ways to connect with me, my TikTok, my email, my website, all linked in the show notes. I love you. I wish you a happy, healed sex life. And I will see you guys here on the next episode. Bye.